Good afternoon, Deanne Melnick. How are you today?
I'm doing great today. How are you?
Oh, fantastic. And as you know, we're live. So thank you for your time today. Really appreciate it. You could have been doing anything else, but you chose to spend a half hour, 45 minutes with me today. So thank you.
Of course.
Awesome. So I'll get started. I said you get when we started chatting, I typically, Deanne, I start off with some sort of a quick story, or like a did you know, because I guess this is lending, right? So lending with purpose are conversations that we have with clients and friends, introductions to various forms of information, professionals, and resources like yourself, that we use, that we look for, that we never knew existed or wanted to learn more about. And so we kind of talked about purpose a little bit before we got started. And so, simply put, purpose is the reason kind of why you do what you do, the reason for which anything is done or exists. And so in our world, we both, so I'm on the residential finance side, mortgage lending, and we're brokers, and you're on the home side, like, selling the houses. And so I often find that, family is always one thing that's really important. The reason why people purchase homes, right? Financial stability, or I should say financial gain, so to speak, or vehicle investment is another reason, number two. And then number three, stability. And that's like encompasses everything, the family as well as the financial investment. And so also with the purpose piece, we're pretty blessed and fortunate that we actually make a pretty good living to help people accomplish their purpose in these three things. And so one of the things I was talking to you about earlier, and I know we're going to touch on before we even move any further, is kind of the reason why people get into doing community service and just being involved in the community. And you mentioned one of the things that you're doing, and you can tell us a little bit about it later. But this is way off, but here we go. Let me try it. I thought about uh, Marcus Luttrell. You know who Marcus Luttrell is, right?
I do know who Marcus Luttrell is. I've actually met him.
You didn't give him his dog, did you? His service dog.
No,
All right,
I
all right.
didn't, but I did meet him when I worked for the Stars. Actually, I was in charge of our military night, and he came and dropped the first puck for us. So
Got it. And so when you told me like what you did with the dogs and stuff locally, and I want to get into that, I was thinking like how cool would it be if she was the person that got him his service dog. I remember meeting him as well several years ago. And so he walks up on stage, Deanne, and he's like, well, you know, they just paid me some money to come on and tell you guys how much of a great day I
that
had.
sounds just like him.
Yeah, yeah. So with that said, Deanne Melnick, you're gonna do a much better job, I promise you, at introducing yourself over me. So why don't you tell us who you are and what you do, and then we'll get into our conversation.
Sure. So my name is Deanne Melnick. I have been back in the DC area for about 4 years now. I'm a Texan born and raised, so grew up about an hour outside of Austin, right in between Austin and Fort Hood. My dad was a firefighter on the military base in Fort Hood. So kind of grew up around the military, even though my family wasn't true military. We had a lot of friends and family who were. And when I got out of college, I thought I wanted to be a sports agent, and I kind of got into that industry a little bit and found that it wasn't as fulfilling as I thought it would be. And I kind of accidentally landed into working for a builder and got my license a couple years later, and I've been doing real estate ever since. So it's 2003. So it's been a while.
Got it, got it. That's good. That's awesome. And so you're in a couple things. So I'm gonna first get started by talking about life in Moco. I see that.
hmm
How'd you come up with that? That's pretty cool.
Yeah, so when I moved back to the DC area, I'm licensed in DC, Virginia, and Maryland, but having moved here now twice myself, I know the kind of struggles that people go through relocating to the area. They don't necessarily always know where they're going to end up, and a lot of times they may take a job in DC but end up in Bethesda or Arlington or, somewhere else. And so I came back up here, and my husband was born and raised in Rockville, right near Grosvenor Metro, North Bethesda area. And I just really embraced where I was at. And that was something that, I started getting to know the neighborhood really well. I know every restaurant in the area, and I really just wanted to focus my business on a place that I love. And Montgomery County, Maryland is a place that I really love. So I came up with the Instagram handle. It's my website, also lifeinmoco.com. And it's just talks about real estate in the area. My Instagram's kind of a mix of real estate and personal. So I'll share, restaurant stuff, other places that we like to go, and organizations I'm involved with in the area. So
Right. So I'm gonna ask you the question, but kind of talk through it a little bit too.
yeah.
Um, so it's my understanding, like, when you do stuff like that, you become kind of like the expert in your area, right?
Yeah.
So I personally think if I'm relocating somewhere, the first thing I'm gonna do is to do the Google thing.
Mhm.
And then if someone pops up and they seem or appear to know the area that I want to live in, I would reach out to that person because I'm gonna assume that they have connections in the area. They're gonna know the restaurants and all the amenities, and I'm not quite sure if y'all can talk about schools and stuff like that, but they're just gonna know what's going on in the area. Have you? So two things. Is that why you did that? Number one, and then number two, like, what kind of feedback are you getting from folks that are reaching out to you in regards to real estate?
Yeah, so having been in the business a long time, I think one of the mistakes that I would say I made early on, and a mistake a lot of realtors make early on, is trying to be everything to everyone. So, I can help you with any house, anywhere. I can buy, sell, lease, rent, invest, commercial, whatever. And it's so much that it's really hard to specialize. And I'm not in a place where I ever turn business away that's not an area that I can help with, but what I found was that really knowing the area that I absolutely love to work in, which is, 10 to 15 miles from my house, I was really able to focus and kind of build myself up as an expert, like you mentioned. And I do get a lot of great feedback for that. I've actually had people in my, sphere of influence, circle of people that I know, that have reached out to me that are like, everything there is to know about real estate in Rockville. So why would I not use you? Or, you know everything about real estate in Bethesda. So why would I not use you? And that's, it's kind of the opposite of what you might think. Cause I think everyone tries to be the realtor for everyone. And for me, it's like, I'd rather focus on what I really love. And that's selling homes in Montgomery County. So
Understood. Are you finding in some cases that you get referrals from other realtors that want you to like find a specific property in a specific neighborhood, and like if there's a special amenity or something that someone's looking for, do they lean on you for that kind of help and expertise?
yes, absolutely. So that's one of the things that I have really found to be beneficial with really kind of making this focus in the last couple of years. I deal with a lot of military relocations, particularly with Walter Reed. And so because it's right down the road from where I live, I know the area really well, and people will reach out to me when they have people that have special needs for housing, whether it be school related or size of house or neighborhood amenities or whatever. They know that I know them. So
Understood. Wow. I'm just gonna highlight. I was gonna keep that to myself because I just had a light bulb like ding ding ding. I, I'm like, duh, Walter Reed. I had, you know what, until you said that, Deanne, I never thought in a million years about like uh that there would be military relocations for, the Walter Reed.
yeah,
Um
that's one
yeah.
thing a lot of people don't think about with military relocations. A lot of times you think in your head like, "Oh, I'm a officer," or "I'm, a computer technician or something within the military," and they don't realize there's a massive medical profession within the within the military itself. And so, like, I actually have what 2 or 3 clients that are military dentists at Walter Reed. It's like very random and something you would never think of, but absolutely, there's a big military community there.
Yeah, and it's massive, and the thing that you think most about with Walter Reed is just the patience.
Right.
Folks coming there, and then obviously there's got to be some folks there to work in that facility and
Yeah.
manage it and such. So, for loan officers and realtors that are listening, Deanne, I apologize, but we might encroach on you a little bit. At least you have runway and a head start, but I never
Yeah.
thought about that. That's a great niche to have.
Yeah.
The crazy thing is, we hear people, hear like some of the influencers out there and some folks that have been wildly successful. The crazy thing is less than 1% of people get these ideas and execute on them anyway. So
Yeah.
it doesn't matter that we give out the information. So no, that's good stuff. Is that how, so obviously based on your background, but is that how you got into, tell us about the service dogs. Is that how you
Yeah.
got into that or not?
No, not at all. It's I feel like life is really just a series of accidents for me. I mean, there's a lot of things that I kind of have fallen into that turned out to be really great. My brother-in-law actually during the off season works at a brewery out in Brookville, and we were just going out to visit him. I hadn't been there before, and just enjoying a beautiful day, and I pull into the entrance and I see a sign for hero dogs, and my curious self decides to Google it. And I had known of service dogs. I really didn't know a ton about them or how that worked. And at the time, my husband and I were kind of debating fostering or getting a dog ourselves. And I saw on their website that they were looking for puppy raisers. And I thought, what a great opportunity to give back, but also to, get some experience raising a dog and really try to make a difference for someone. So I applied for the volunteer, and the rest is history. I mean, I guess.
Let's go more into that. What are
Yeah.
hero dogs?
So Hero Dogs is a nonprofit organization that's Montgomery County based. So 100% local. Everything they do is within about an hour drive of their facility where they place dogs. And they raise, train, and place service dogs with veterans or former first responders with a disability, free of charge. So that's the big thing is a lot of times if you research to get a service dog, the cost is going to be, $25,000 to $50,000, depending on the level of training they have. And that's not even counting, vet bills and stuff that you would have with a normal dog. And so it's very cost prohibitive for people because there's a lot that goes into raising them. And organizations like Hero Dogs want to basically remove that barrier and allow anyone who really needs to have the assistance of an animal be able to have that access. And so basically the puppy raising program is we spent about a year and a half with a dog from the time he was 8 weeks old to the time he was about a year and a half. And we kind of worked with him. We went to class once a week. We did basic training like manners and then also some simple commands. And then he'll now go on to advanced training where he's at now, where he's learning more specific skills and then hopefully be partnered with someone.
Oh wow, 25 to $50,000 for that
Yeah.
dog. And
Yeah.
this organization raises the money to give them away. Is that right? At no cost, I should say.
Correct. Correct. And that's some of that's done through government grants. I mean, there's some great programs out there. There was actually a bill recently passed in support of service dog organizations like Hero Dogs, but a lot of it's also just volunteer hours and individual donations, corporate donations, and things like that to help with the service. So
Got it. How about how many dogs do they give access to?
yeah,
Or
so they're a smaller organization, and because they are super local, I believe last year we placed about 12 dogs. But the broader scope of that is that some of the dogs, so when you're raising and training a service dog, the success rate for a dog to make it all the way to becoming a service dog is only about one in every 3 or 4 dogs. And the reason for that is not necessarily the training, but is the temperament of the dog itself. And that's something that is genetic. It's, you can breed as close to as possible and get all the traits that you want. But if you look at just a general litter of puppies, you can see some of them are lazier than others. Some of them have more energy, and the characteristics that are needed are so specific that it's hard. And so what Hero Dogs does is, in addition to placing the service dogs, they also try to find a job for other dogs that don't make it all the way to that level. So we have dogs working at all the Inova hospitals locally. One of our most famous hero dogs is Barney. He's at Children's Medical, and he's been in the Washington Post a few times. He's been on TV recently with the kids getting vaccines for the first time. So there's a lot of opportunity for dogs that aren't quite cut out to be service dogs to also serve in some way. So the impact is a lot bigger than just those dogs that are placed.
Got it. Thank you. And those that are listening, I promise you, we're getting somewhere with this. Is this whole thing isn't about service dogs. I think it's really neat that we're talking about it. So how cool is it to have someone a realtor that you can talk to that just doesn't talk to you about homes, and has something else to offer, and just stuff that people kind of like. And one of the other things I was thinking about, you mentioned volunteering, you mentioned impact, right?
Yep.
What else are you into in your community? So like, have these things like being ingrained in the community, has that led you to doing other activities, because you're so much a part of the community? Like, how has that fit in for you?
Yeah, so I've been involved in various organizations over the last few years. The biggest thing for me is there's always a tie-in to something that I'm already passionate about. So like with Hero Dogs, for example, it's the military. I grew up near military. I have a lot of military friends and family. So I, feel like that's such a huge sacrifice, and any small thing I could do to give back to those people, I would do it. I also am pretty involved now in the Mana Food Center. I've started volunteering there as far as packing boxes. I just did a food drive in November, which thank you for participating in that, by the way. I appreciate y'all's donations.
No problem.
But yeah, just, one thing kind of leads to another. I think anytime that you're out in the community, opportunities kind of present themselves for you to give back and get involved. And it certainly has for me.
Understood. And then so how does this all fit into real estate? Before we got started, you know what? I'm not going to steal your thunder on that piece. Tell us how it, and remember what you told me about that piece earlier, but like, you know, how does it fit into real estate at all?
Yeah, so for me, I think, a lot of people when you become a realtor, it's how do you get business and how do you build your circle of people and how do you get to know more and more people, and that's something that community service seems like a very easy piece of that. Like you're obviously out in the community, you're getting to know people. But for me, it was actually backwards. I started volunteering in the community because it was something that was important to me personally. Growing up, my family wasn't rich. We certainly had everything we needed, but I saw that my parents both worked very hard to provide all that to us. And, to be in a situation where we were never wanting for anything. And I think I see a lot of people as I've gotten older and been very fortunate in business to, open my eyes to people that don't have two people just fighting tooth and nail for them to have everything they need. And to know that there are people out there that have amazing skills and amazing things to offer the world, but don't have the opportunities that I did. If there's anything I can do to help provide that, that's my way to give back. And so, yes, 100% it has led to real estate business for me. But I think it's because I've connected with people in the community on common ground, on things that we both care about. And so it's, the know, like, and trust factor. People with real estate, they always say they want to work with people they know, like, and trust. And that's built naturally when you bond over something that you really care about.
That's awesome. No, that's great. Thanks for that. Just a couple more questions, and then I'll let you go because I know you got a life in Moco, and you just changed companies, I think, recently, right?
Yes.
Okay. How was the transition?
So I think anytime in real estate you change companies, it's going to be a little bit of growing pains where you're kind of figuring out your footing in a new place. But one of the things for me is that I was with a small boutique company before. And while I absolutely loved where I was, I felt like I'd kind of reached the top of what I could do. And um, similar to giving back in the community, I always want to do more. And so I was like, how can I grow this? How can I build a team? How can I have a network of people across the country to help? And I already had a little bit of that because I'm still licensed in Texas and I have some people in Texas that help me out when I have referrals down there. But I wanted to grow that piece of my business. And so working with a big global company like EXP kind of made it a natural transition for me to do so. And it's been great so far.
Okay. And last question around this, and then we'll get into asking a couple questions about how we can help you. But what advice would you give to other agents in your shoes? So like maybe someone who is, because times are a little different than when you relocated, but
Right.
someone that's coming from another state into an area to become a realtor, but also someone who's like, I have a lot of purpose and a lot of passion around things, and I want to really live in that purpose and passion. But like I just don't know how to mix it into to my everyday life, so to speak, into my work world.
Right.
So what advice do you give to someone, number one, on relocating, right? But then once they get here, how do you weave it all into into your world?
Yeah, so the first advice I would give you as far as relocating is 100% do your research. So don't just plan to go there and figure it out. You definitely need to have some savings to make that transition because it's always going to be a little tough going into a new market. Make sure you know what the licensing transfer process is like because that can be difficult. And then above all, make sure you're choosing a brokerage that is a good fit for you. Do the research, interview different places because I think that can be crucial to your success or failure, if depending on what you choose. And then, as far as getting started in a place, the thing I always encourage agents is to be authentic. Be yourself, be genuine. It's kind of like I was saying with getting involved in the community. Like it wouldn't make any sense for me to go and like join mom groups. I'm not a mom. I don't connect with people that are moms because I don't have that experience and I don't know that. But if you are, that's a great place to start. Get to know the moms in your neighborhood. They're decision makers a lot of times. They're the people that are going to be saying, my kids are getting too big for the house we're living in. And that's a natural, transition to be talking to them about business. But be authentic and genuine in where you try to get plugged in, but do get plugged in no matter what that looks like for you.
That's great. You're so succinct. You get right to it. You make this easy for me. Thank you, Deanne. Thank you so
Well,
much.
thanks.
What how can we connect with you? I mean, there's so much stuff that we could talk about. I think the biggest thing today that I wanted to kind of hear from you and talk about was the community involvement, because that's been something that's been allowing you to shine,
Yeah,
and made you very successful. Because it's like, when I look at your social media, it's not just kind of all business, and it's not
right.
just your world with you, maybe having a meal or attending a sporting event and whatnot. It's the whole gamut, like, in
Yeah,
regards to being in the community, especially the communities that you serve. And so I really wanted to make sure that we touched on that today. But also, I like what you said about, leading with that piece first, as opposed to saying, I'm going to be a realtor and then I'm going to decide to get more business. I'm going to do these
right.
things. That kind of, that doesn't really make sense. It kind of defeats the purpose. I guess it'll work for some people, but it's
Yeah.
just, I don't know, got to kind of check your character a little bit if that's the only
Yeah.
why you're
And
doing
I
it.
mean, the thing about it is people see through it. When you aren't leading with your heart and like that servant's attitude, then people are just like, oh, they showed up for a photo op, and you could tell it. It's so obvious. But I think as far as what you can do to help or be involved in the community, for me, yeah, I think a lot of people have a barrier to community service or getting involved with charities sometimes because they feel like, oh, it's a lot of money and I don't have a lot of money, or I don't have, I can't write a check for this, or I can't sponsor this because it's $10,000 or whatever. And what I would encourage is if there's a cause that you care about, like let's say hunger is a really big thing to you. Reach out to the local food banks and ask, how can I help? I don't have money to give. I don't have this, but what can I do? And there are like Manna, for example, is great because they do volunteer shifts. They post them every month and it's a 2-hour time commitment. It's really not much, and especially with realtors, our schedules are kind of crazy, but we can put stuff on the calendar and work around it. And I think that's kind of the key is really just finding out where you can help. It may not look on paper what you think it will look like, but every little bit does make a difference. Most of these organizations rely super heavily on volunteers. And even if that's something as simple as, hey, we need somebody to stuff envelopes for our annual letter that we send out asking for donations, like that's, take a couple of hours of your time, but it's huge for them because that is a staff position they don't have to fill. They don't have money to do that. So,
Understood. Can I ask you one more question?
of course.
I just thought about something. I have always had such a hard time, like, um, giving, so to speak, in public,
Yeah.
right? I always want to be that person that does it anonymously, and I don't want to be taking selfies and having a whole photo opportunity and stuff like that. Like, what's your thought around that? Because there's a way to do it to sort of inspire people and to
Right.
actually bring awareness to the particular cause. Like, is there I don't know how to say it. Is there a right way or a wrong way to do it in your opinion, especially in real estate? Because
Yep.
again, if you're heart and mind's not in the right place, it can come across the wrong way.
Yeah.
Like, do you have any opinions and thoughts on that?
I think that's one thing that I've had a lot of interesting conversations with people about, because if you do follow me on social media, you know what I'm involved in. Like, you know, all of it, because I do post about it. And I think for me, there are always going to be people that criticize you because they're on the sidelines not doing anything. And they may just say, oh, you're doing that for whatever, you're doing that for clout, or, just to show people what you're doing. But the people that do get to know me and see, I guess, a lot of the ways in how I post. So a lot of times I'm not necessarily just doing things myself, but I'm organizing
Yeah.
events like the food drive, for example. I'm trying to bring other people with me. So it's really important to me to get everyone else involved. It may not be that you have the time to organize a food drive, but if you can give me 5 cans out of your cabinet that just don't have space for, or can just bear to part with, like, I think that's certainly, it's, 5 here, 5 there. There's 400 people in my neighborhood. That's 2,000 cans, like, that's insane. So, um, I think if you're coming from the right place and you're doing it because you really do want to get the band together and get everybody involved with it, I think it can be great. And then with the service dog thing, for me, that was more about educating, because I think, especially right now, you see a lot of situations, and we see this in housing a lot too, where people are like, oh, I have an emotional support animal, or I have a service dog. And when you start digging into it, you find that, the dog isn't trained at all. And you just bought a piece of paper on the internet that says you have a service dog. And for me, that piece has been really important, is educating people about, what does a service dog mean? What does a service dog do? And while an emotional support animal is a real thing, there's a difference between an actual emotional support animal and your pet that you don't want to pay for. So,
Nice. Thank you. Thank you. So I guess we'll be seeing some more pictures from Shawn out in the out and about. No, thanks for that. I really appreciate it. How can we connect with you? How do we connect with you? And we'll put this in the chat as well in the comments.
yeah, so social media is the easiest way to find me. Instagram, I'm pretty much on it every day for at least a little bit, and it's, like you said, Life in Moco. My website is also lifeinmoco.com, and my phone number and email and everything are there. It's really easy to reach out to me there.
Okay. LIFEINMOCO.
Yep, that's it.
Yeah. Life in Moco. Got you. All right. And so here we go. And we'll let you go after this one. You can hang on for me just a couple more minutes after we close out. But um not an icebreaker, but we close with this. I suppose this is the purpose piece of lending with purpose. And so you get one person, one question. Um, who would it be, and what would you ask?
So for me, this was a hard question, because I selfishly want to talk to a lot of people. But I think if I had one person, it would actually be Eleanor Roosevelt. And I say that because she was one of the first ladies who was an activist. Like, she had causes that she cared about, and she was out in the community. And it wasn't just about what china she picked or what dress she wore to a gala. And I think, especially back in that time, that was not the norm, because you certainly had, the first lady was an, an image, it wasn't necessarily the involvement that you see these days. And I would just want to ask her kind of how she got inspired to take that more active role. And that would be what I'd want to know.
That's pretty cool. That's a great question, and it's a great question. We haven't gotten that one yet. You know what? I think I've heard her name in another event that we've done, and that question
Hmm.
came up. But that's a really good question to ask. But it wasn't in that light. I didn't realize that she was an activist that way. Um, so good question, good person. Thank you for that. Really
Yeah.
appreciate it. Thank you so much for your time today. As I mentioned, it would just be such a shame. I don't even know if I mentioned this, but actually, the way we got started, Deanne, is just trying to lead with helping people as
Hmm.
much as we possibly can, and it would just kind of be a shame for me to have folks like yourself in the network and not be able to introduce you or connect you with someone else in the network. Everyone needs to know each other, and
Yeah.
so if there's anything that I can do to help anybody here, don't hesitate to reach out. And Deanne, again, I really appreciate your time, effort, and energy today. And I'm sure we'll be talking again soon.
Yeah, well, I really appreciate you having me on. It's always good to share what I'm up to, and great to chat with other like-minded people. So
Awesome. We will see everybody next week. We'll be here again at 2 o'clock, and make sure everyone has a great day.